Third District with Stephanie Thomas and Patrizia Zucaro.
All right, same rules for this as for the other. Each question gets 2-minute response, 30-second rebuttal or extension, 2-minute closings. I'm going to ask a slightly different opening question. It goes by luck of the draw to Ms. Thomas first. What do you think will be the worst challenges facing? Sorry? Oh,
Okay.
she's still muted. I'm sorry.
If
Both of the candidates are still muted. All right, Ms. Thomas. Oops. I thought for a minute she'd gone live.
I seem to be live now. Okay,
good.
Perfect.
Nobody touch anything. Okay. To Ms. Thomas first. What do you think will be the worst challenges facing Connecticut in the next 2 years? And how should the legislature address them?
Sure. I think, first of all, thank you for hosting this. And I'm sorry to be so late in the night when there's been so many technical challenges. So thank you for your fortitude. I think absolutely economic development is going to be the biggest challenge on our plate for the years to come. But I also think there's a great opportunity there. We really need to focus on, I think, several things. Looking at where we're spending our money, how we're spending it, making sure we are making smart investments in growth opportunities and scaling back where we're not seeing dividends pay off. We're going to have to look at job creation, making sure we have a great trend going on right now with individuals moving to our area. But I think we have a great opportunity to attract businesses to our area right now as well. And also looking at where we can make budget cuts. You can't cut your way to prosperity, but I'm sure there are some ways to reallocate funding. In particular, I've been looking at budget lines where we might see an impact on prevention versus intervening later on. A very simple example of that, we spend a lot of money on environmental spills, for example. If we put more money into enforcement, we might see a cheaper price tag there. I'll leave it there, but economic development, job one.
Thank you. Same question to Ms. Zucaro.
Hi, good evening. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting this event, to the volunteers and the viewers. I'm excited to be here. I was actually very excited about answering that question about what committees I was going to be on. I think it's a great question and I was really excited about it. But to your question, I think one of the #1 things that we need to focus on is education. So COVID has hit the education really hard, and we've had distance learning and we've had difficulties with distance learning. So the impact has been troubling for school districts. What I would like to do if I'm elected, I want to introduce legislation requiring the state to give districts post-pandemic flexibility for a limited period to help students close the learning gap and move forward with their education. I think that making sure that education is that students are getting back on track is really important, and that was really hard hit because of COVID. I also think we need to be concerned about the existing issues that were plaguing our state before COVID started, which would be, transportation, the economy, making sure we can cut spending, infrastructure. So I think while COVID has done a lot of things, has been at the forefront of our daily lives, we still have to be concerned and realizing all the existing issues that Connecticut had beforehand, and we need to plan for those as well. So first and foremost, education would be really important to me, and some of these other things. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Thomas, do you have anything further you want to say on this?
I would just say that, yes, obviously we have many issues that I think different constituent groups would all feel are #1 importance to them, whether it's healthcare or independent living for people living with learning disabilities, or prescription costs, education, as Ms. Zucaro mentioned. There are so many things, but I do know that if we don't get our economic engine.
Okay. Ms. Zucaro, anything further?
No, thank you.
Okay. Next question goes to Ms. Zucaro first. It's got a fairly long preamble. Early care and education serves two critical needs. It allows parents to work, and it gives children with early learning experiences they need to be ready for school success. The economics of early care and education are marginal at best, especially in mid and lower income areas, where early care and education is essential, but the market cannot afford it, making state and federal child care subsidies essential or at least useful. What are your plans to provide funding for early care and education that makes it available, affordable for families, and pays early childhood teachers salaries commensurate with the qualifications that they require?
So education is one of the most important aspects of our communities, and ensuring that individuals have access to education, it's very important. As far as early care, we've noticed recently that it's very important to start education early on. And it's the most important time in education. But we need to have the money. And so we need to ensure that we are allocating the funds properly to these individuals and making sure that they're getting the education necessary. I would like to see folks getting more and more, we've been requiring folks to get more and more education, which has become sort of a burden on finding teachers who are able to teach. And unfortunately, that drives the costs up. And so what I'd like to see is making sure that we are evaluating all the circumstances and providing the resources necessary and ensuring that teachers are able to teach, but also lessening them to an extent that we're able to also provide those resources. We need to find balance in how we approach this. And it's a very difficult and complex question and situation. And so it's not a one size fits all answer, and it needs to be, we need to really look into it a little bit more in order to establish exactly the pathway and find the balance. The key here is balancing, because it's very important to make sure that we have this education early on, and we need the resources in order to do that. And we need the teachers in order to do that. And so it's a very complex situation, and we need to make sure that all the parts are fitting together. And so we need balance. We need a balanced approach. Thank you.
Okay, same question, Ms. Thomas.
Can I ask you to repeat it? I want to make sure I got the germ at the end.
Yes. Early care and education serves two critical needs. It allows parents to work, and it provides children with early learning experiences that they need to be ready for school success. The economics of early care and education are marginal at best, especially in mid and lower income areas. Early care and education is still essential, but the market there cannot afford it, making state and federal child care subsidies essential. What are your plans to provide funding for early care and education that makes it available, affordable for families, and pays early childhood teachers commensurate with the qualifications that are required in state subsidized programs?
Thank you for that. I know for sure that the writer of the question has more experience in this area than I do, but definitely a critical need. A lot of my work with various nonprofit agencies have, I think we all know by age 4, there are a lot of outcomes that are already set with in terms of literacy and development. And I think this question does not even touch upon, but here in Norwalk in particular, we have a lot of English language learners who need some extra support as they transition into the school years, as well as people with learning and developmental disabilities. It's really tricky. I've been thinking about this a little bit. There's a nonprofit here in Connecticut, I think it's in Bridgeport, called All Our Kin. And they have a model that seems like it's very replicable, and I would love to see the state get involved in this with maybe one of these pay for success models that you see. And what they do is invest in community members, train them how to open a daycare center, an early childhood center, and gives them the curriculum and all the business skill sets so that there is care provided in the neighborhood where it's usually lacking. And I think if the state could partner with nonprofits in this kind of work, it both serves as business development, which you'll hear me talk about a lot tonight, and provides early childhood care in the neighborhoods where it's most needed.
Okay, thank you. Any rebuttal or extension, Ms. Zucaro?
Yes, I would just like to add one thing. Right now the Education Housing Chair, Bobby Sanchez, he's been a leader in trying to make this work, because the issue here is that as you have more training for the teachers, you have higher salaries and the cost rises, and it's important. And so he's been doing a multi-year effort to pay early education teachers and still have that qualification. It's been hard, and he hasn't been able to work it out, but I look forward to working with him and talking with him and finding solutions and finding that balance of creating. Thank you.
Sorry. Anything further, Ms. Thomas?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you both. Next question goes to Ms. Thomas first. As a legislator, how would you balance economic development versus health and safety in response to COVID-19?
Sure. First of all, I will say I'm very happy that I reside in Connecticut, because I think we've done an incredible job of walking the tightrope that we have to continue to walk. I don't think we can stimulate the economy if we lose consumer confidence. I door knock a lot. I talk to a lot of small business owners in particular who are home right now. And even though their business is still going on, they will say that people have a reticence of spending money because of the economic situation, or coming out, and this is beyond restaurants, because there are a bunch of other types of businesses. So we have to restore make sure consumer confidence stays high, and that's where wearing a mask, social distancing, all of that needs to continue. And then on the economic development front, as I said earlier, I think we have a really interesting opportunity now. For example, our corporate tax rate is 1% higher than New York's, but much lower than Massachusetts and New Jersey. I call it a move-in bonus. I would love to coax some companies here from New York and give them match the rate, or maybe even dip below the 6.5 for a couple of years, and then gradually escalate them up to our current rate. Sorry, the timekeeper. Sorry, it's all tied together. But public health, if people are afraid to go out, if our infection rates keep going up and up, I think we'll risk slipping backward, and we might lose out on many of these positive economic trends that we're experiencing now.
Okay, thank you. Same question to Ms. Zucaro.
Thank you. We must continue to balance the data-driven policy, public health imperatives with economic and social considerations. And the legislature must be included in these decision-making. Currently, Governor Lamont has done a good job, but his approach is a do-it-alone approach instead of getting the legislature involved. And I'd like to see the legislature's more involvement in making decisions and bringing that information back to the constituents, and getting feedback from us on how to do it. I also think we need to, obviously safety is paramount in all these decision-making, and we need to balance what health experts are saying and again, safety is paramount. So, but we also need to help businesses, and especially small businesses. We need to help them recover and grow by creating a much better regulatory and administrative and tax environment for them, with few erroneous mandates. I know that during the pandemic, we've had some executive orders that were friendly to businesses, and if they work, let's keep them. Like I said before, the pandemic has basically taken center stage. So Connecticut's other fundamental issues haven't gone away, and we must restore the state's finances by cutting wasteful spending, paying off mounting debt and unfunded retirement obligations, reducing taxes while investing in infrastructure and social services. I'd like to also see, an increase in the making sure our schools are getting the benefit. And here in Norwalk, we need to make sure that ECS funding remains a top priority. So these are the things that we could do. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Thomas, do you want to say anything further on this?
I would, although I think I forget the question, but I would like to give a quick shout out for any small business owner who doesn't know. Governor Lamont released new funds that basically, I call it PPP Light. It's a grant program for small businesses under 1.5 million. It opened, I think, yesterday, so be sure to apply. But to Ms. Zucaro's point earlier, the legislature has been involved in all of these decisions, but the governor. Time's up.
I know. Ms. Zucaro, do you want to say anything further on development versus COVID?
No, thank you.
All right. Thank you both. Next question goes to Ms. Zucaro first. We saw Black Lives Matter demonstrations in many cities and towns in Connecticut this summer. How are you planning to address the issues illuminated by these protests? How do you plan to ensure the voices of underrepresented groups are taken into consideration in the legislative process?
Thank you for the question. I firmly believe that everyone, regardless of wealth, race, or religion, must have an equal opportunity and freedom. And I think these goals can be achieved through jobs and education. In Connecticut, unfortunately, we have a serious problem attracting and keeping businesses thriving, which creates jobs, which creates opportunities. I support streamlining businesses and creating processes and taxations on businesses and common sense initiatives. I also think this is a good opportunity to talk about the police accountability bill. I know that the question doesn't really ask that question, but I think it's important because it's sort of, the police accountability was prompted by these social, by the environment nationally. And again, I believe that protecting the rights of individuals and enabling law enforcement agents, officers, to keep communities safe isn't mutually exclusive. The intentions behind the recent police accountability bill were good, but they were rushed through without committee scrutiny or proper public notice. There wasn't in-depth conversations with police officers. And we've left many police officers uncertain on how to perform their jobs properly, discouraging new recruits and making our communities less safe. And it's less safe for everyone. A victim is a victim regardless. And if we are hampering our police officers in any way, then the result is the victim. The victim is the person who's going to feel the brunt of this. And so what was also amazing to me about the police accountability bill is that the legislature was literally saying, while it was being enacted, that they were going to have amendments to it after the fact. Thank you.
I'm on that. Same question to Ms. Thomas.
I forget the original question.
Okay. Let me reread it. We saw Black Lives Matter demonstrations in many cities and towns in Connecticut this summer. How are you planning to address the issues illuminated by these protests? And how do you plan to ensure the voices of underrepresented groups are taken into consideration in the legislative process?
One of the most important ways I've tried to address it is running for office. It's it's not nothing I had planned to do, but I think it's important to have a diversity of voices in Hartford of all types. So obviously I have a certain lived experience by dint of my skin color, which is important. So I think I carry some of that with me. But for me, talking about specific policies, committees, even specific legislation is how systemic racism has been allowed to continue and how things miss the mark. It really has to permeate everything. Kamala Harris said something once about a reporter asking her, like, oh, what women's issues will you be tackling? And she said something like, you know, the economy, jobs, healthcare, they're all women's issues. They're all Black people issues, brown people issues, white people issues. Every issue affects every person. So that's the approach that I bring. I don't want one law, because we have learned over the last many, many decades that if legislation could solve every problem, we wouldn't have racism. And then just quickly on police accountability, since it came up, I think we can all agree that 99% of that bill, most people thought was great. There has been some egregious behavior that slipped through the cracks. We've had some bad situations in Connecticut here, and that legislators have to balance wishes of the police union and all the other lobbyists on the other side of the aisle, as well as all the people who testified for 12 hours. And sadly, the role is that usually when that happens, no one gets 100% of what they want.
Okay, thank you. Would Ms. Zucaro, you like to do any rebuttal or extension on this?
Yeah, I would just like to mention one thing. There were some certain instances in the bill where it was good, like training and body cams, but there's some pretty egregious things like, consent to searches. And some of those consent to searches would provide officers the ability to obtain illegal weapons. I have a distinction with Moms Demand Actions and a grade A with CT Against Gun Violence. And these organizations protect against, thank you.
All right. Anything further on this, Ms. Thomas?
Probably not, but yes, I too have those distinctions, and an added distinction of actually being endorsed by Connecticut Against Gun Violence. Most of that bill was generally approved by everybody. Everybody had a seat at the table, but as I said, you can't always get 100% of what you want. And I think the police union's job is to fight for everything they want, and that's their job, and that's what they do, and I applaud them for that.
Okay, thank you both. We are now at an interesting juncture. It's not quite time for closing statements, but there certainly is not time to do a full set of questions and rebuttals. So what I'm going to do is, timers, I'm going to ask that each candidate be given 1 minute on this next question, no rebuttals, and then we will get to closing statements. This one will start with Ms. Thomas, and it's knowing that Norwalk Harbor got an F and its recent Safe the Sound report card because of inner harbor contamination. How should the legislature address the issue?
Ooh, 1 minute. I think there are a few things. Enforcement seems to be the biggest issue that I hear about whenever I speak with any environmentalist in Norwalk. And making sure that the permitting process is receiving all of its due diligence, whether it's developments near the waterfront or what is allowed to exist. Little things like, obviously we here in Norwalk passed the plastic bag ban. Which is great. So I think it's it's a bunch of things that happen across a wide spectrum that will help make sure we are, fulfilling our environmental impact goals. Sorry, the time threw me off.
That's it. Thank you. Again, 1 minute, same question. Ms. Zucaro.
Thank you. I'd like to see the Long Island Sound Blue Plan passed. What it does, or what it's for, the purpose is cleaning up the Long Island Sound, and it's a long time overdue. And it's important because we have other ecosystems. Not only do we have the benefit of enjoying the Long Island Sound, but there's also ecosystems that live there that we need to make sure that we protect. I also think it's important that since this is water, we need to ensure that our water is clean here and make sure that we have a trust for public water. And so these are the things that we can do to help the harbor. And I think, thank you.
Okay, thank you. We now arrive at closing statements. 2 minutes each, no rebuttals. And by luck of the draw, Ms. Zucaro, you go first.
Oh, great. All right, so thank you so much to the League. I appreciate it again for hosting this event, and thank you for everyone being here tonight. Connecticut needs change. For 40 years, the majority party in the legislature has been more focused on special interests and national level policies instead of doing the hard work at home and developing solutions for Connecticut's issues. I'm sorry that we didn't have time to address other issues, specifically, employees raises when everyone else was losing their job, because these are all important things. And unfortunately, we didn't have the time to discuss a lot of them. But my parents immigrated from Italy to Connecticut. They taught me the value of hard work, dedication, and commitment. I'm running to be your state representative because I care about our community and because it is important to have legislators who are megaphones, who tell us honestly about what's going on in Hartford. I bring to the table my legal experience and deep affection to my lifelong home. As an attorney, I understand that the issues are not black and white, that they are complex and deserve thoughtful consideration, not reliance on national policy or political party. I will be an independent voice. In fact, I've been endorsed by the Independent Party. I will work across the aisle. With me, there's no us versus them. Only you, our families, and our communities. Connecticut is truly a very special and unique place with extraordinary natural beauty, an amazing location, and wonderful people. At the state level, we must focus on Connecticut, our businesses, our communities, and our finances. I've lived here my whole life, and I'm not afraid of anyone in my party or in the other party. I will not let other people dictate what is best for us in our schools, in our zoning, or in anything else. I'm focused on Norwalk, Wilton, and Westport, and the issues that matter most to you. Thank you.
Thank you. And final closing statement, Ms. Thomas.
Thank you for hosting once again. I think politics are easy, but governing is much harder. In politics, you say whatever you want, and if you say it loudly enough and often enough, people sometimes believe it. Governance is much more difficult. It's a three-legged stool of fiscal responsibility, the innovative spirit to dream up something new that no one's done before, and the ability to bring multiple stakeholders to the table to make it work. Politics are a distraction. I call it the fly buzzing into your ear. And you heard throughout this entire campaign and a little bit in this closing statement, some buzzwords tonight, but don't let that fly distract you. Governance is about nuance and experience, and I've prepared for this job my entire life without even knowing it. My graduate school training was in policy analysis and nonprofit management. Working with nonprofits taught me to solve problems with evidence-based data and on budget. I joined a company as an intern and 12 years later was its president, leading our growth and managing 25 employees. I led that business through 9/11 and the 2008 recession. I started my own business without the help of nepotism or startup capital, and under 2 years grew it to 7 figures and then beyond. I understand the need to be fiscally sound, but I want to work on our problems honestly without regurgitating the same sound bites that frankly I've heard since I moved here 8 years ago. We can dig out of the hole, but it will take truth telling and those committed to people in progress over politics. I like to hear the sound of your voice more than my own, and I look forward to being your public servant should I be elected. Thank you again for watching. Have a good evening.
Thank you on behalf of the League to both candidates for the 143rd District. Thank you.
Okay, I think we're ready for our